Hi, it's Josh coming back to you with another life adventure. This time it's a much more recent one because on Saturday, May 28th, I took my boys to the Medieval Faire for the third year running. So there's this Medieval Fair that tours Southern Ontario, primarily in the spring and the fall. And 2 years ago, we went to the Ancaster location of the fair, which is near Hamilton, Ontario. Last year, we went to a different location. I forget where it was. I think it was Fergus or something like that, but it was a little bit farther away. This year we went back to Ancaster, and I'm glad we did, because as the date approached, we realized the weather was going to be pretty bad. Specifically, the day in question ended up being very rainy, somewhat cool, and most importantly, quite windy, because when I realized that the weather was going to be bad, I went to the dollar store and got some cheap umbrellas for us, but the wind meant that our cheap dollar store umbrellas did pretty much nothing, unfortunately, and I found myself wishing instead I had bought some dollar store ponchos. Of course, that might not have been ideal for Wyatt because he always likes to go in some kind of cosplay, so this year he went in his rogue outfit and he made a dashing rogue figure at this year's fair. I was wondering if the rather terrible weather meant that there were going to be fewer people this year, but it didn't seem to be the case, and so I concluded that maybe most people purchased their tickets ahead of time, because I don't think it's going to be the type of thing where people are going to go the day of and buy tickets to get in when the weather's that bad. But anyways, the good thing about it being in Ancaster, or the good thing about us purchasing Ancaster tickets this year, was that even though it was very rainy and wet and windy and cold, the highlight of the fair, the jousting, happened indoors in the Ancaster location, inside this great big market building or whatever it was, because the location we were at last year, they were doing it outdoors. So I can't imagine they would do it outdoors in the pouring windy rain. So I was really glad that we didn't miss the main event, the jousting, because ultimately, in part because of the weather, and in part because we had done these experiences in previous years, we weren't super interested in the other entertainment that was happening. We primarily wanted to see the jousting and to do a little bit of shopping around all the stalls where people were selling all kinds of cool knickknacks and costumes and weapons and all kinds of fun stuff. So I will show you a quick highlight of the joust. Like last year, there were only 2 guys on horseback doing the joust. 2 years ago, they had 2 pairs of guys, so we got to see twice as much jousting. And I don't know if it's a matter of people getting injured and them not having as many people, or if it's just cheaper for the fair to have a couple of guys there doing the joust, because the announcer, when he was introducing the knights, was talking about the incredibly horrible injuries these guys have suffered in previous events. And the one guy he introduced said that he had spent 3 months in the hospital after some serious jousting related injuries not that long ago, but he was back in the saddle. And then the other guy had broken his femur at some point, and it's pretty wild that it's quite a crazy sport, because they're doing legitimate real jousting, as you will see when I show you these clips. I just have a really brief clip of the 5 passes the 2 jousters made at each other, so here it is.
Knights received, knights coming about, and the crowd goes wild! Solid strikes for both the knights. Solid strikes for knights coming about, and the crowd goes nuts! 1 point. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge hit indeed, but not enough. Ladies and gentlemen.
So nobody unhorsed this year. In previous years, we've seen guys get actually knocked off their horse to the ground. I suppose that's good for the jousters themselves. For the bloodthirsty crowd, it's not quite as fun, but you know, it's certainly quite a spectacle to watch. And then, like I said, we walked around the booths, and the ground was, there was at least a couple inches of standing water on most of the grounds, and at first I was trying to walk around the main puddles. It eventually became clear that keeping my feet dry was not an option, and I was just sloshing through the wet ground as the rain poured on us. But we still enjoyed checking out all the cool stuff, and I did get myself a handful of trinkets. I got myself this wood dice tray. The only other dice tray I currently own is one of those fold-up ones, and even when it's snapped together, the base of it doesn't sit flat, so it has this weird convex shape to it, which isn't ideal. So got this nice wooden dice tray. I picked up these 2 pins, so I have my punk rock battle jacket that I like to put all kinds of pins and patches on. I also got these 2 patches to put on it, and yeah, I always enjoy spending a couple dollars on pins and patches when I go to events like this. Picked up some fun stuff for the boys as well, got some fudge, some treats, and then we made our way home again. So relatively short event in comparison to our previous years, but like I said, between the weather and the fact that we've seen much of the entertainment in previous years, we were happy enough to catch the jousting and check out all the cool booths and stuff. So that was it for this year's fair. All 3 of us really enjoyed the experience, and I'm sure we'll be back again next year. Do you go to Renaissance fairs or medieval fairs or anything like this? I'd love to hear about your experiences if you have, wherever you happen to be, because I just always find them to be super fun, and I love checking out people's amazing costumes and stuff. That's part of the fun too. So I'd love to hear about it if that's something you've experienced, and in any case, I just appreciate you watching. Cheers. When I realized that the weather key we had I picked up some